Thank you. And Carol Hesselbeck is our town clerk and today's presiding officer. She will open the polls.
Okay, so it's 9 o'clock. The polls are now open until 7 p.m. If you, just a reminder for people, or for people who haven't voted at town meeting before, you go to the back table and check in with the people sitting there, get your ballot, stay over there with the voting booths to do your voting, then go to the exit checklist, give your name again, and put your ballot in the ballot box. Have any problems, the people at the tables should be able to help you, okay? Have fun.
Thank you. So, just to reiterate, once you pick up your ballot, you must cast it before leaving that area. And you can't carry your ballot here and think about it. So think about it also, because this is a polling place, there's no electioneering inside the hall. Our meeting will be recorded by Brattleboro Community Television, and it will be online. If you don't get enough of it today, you can find it at brattleboro.tv.org. For anyone who plans to speak at the meeting, we have 4, count them, 4 microphones this year. So I'm going to ask you please to go to a microphone here or there, or if you are sure you can project, and we'll be the judges of that, everyone who speaks should stand, state their name, and what they have to say. So reminder that we are not voting on the school budget today. The West River Modified Union Education District will hold an informational meeting on the budget on Tuesday, March 21st at Leland and Gray High School at 7 p.m. And voting on the WRMUED will be by Australian ballot the following day for Newfane voters. That will be at the Newbrook Firehouse from 9 a.m. until 7 p.m. Hey, if democracy makes you hungry, we've got the Newbrook PTO with food and coffee for us. And it's by donation, so please donate generously to support their enrichment efforts. And at this time, I ask those who are not legal voters in the town of Newfane to make themselves known. And I believe that includes you, Sheriff Anderson, and your deputy, all right? And is anybody else? Peter from BCTV, our cameraman, is not a legal voter of the town of Newfane. And we have 2 visitors. Are you visitors or are you residents?
We are residents.
I believe you can become voters today. Is that correct? Yes, you can become voters today, but you must do that before you can speak and vote. All right? I think you should see Carol, or see Priscilla Cotton in back. All right, anyone else? I have to remind those of you who are not legal voters in the town of Newfane that you may not vote, and you can speak only at the pleasure of the meeting. Blank page, we won't read that. Inside the front cover of your town report, you will see that this year's report is dedicated to Shelby Jean Hescock. If you turn to the vital statistics on page 143, you will see that we recorded 6 marriages, 11 births, and 14 deaths. I know it's a long time since we've met together, but for the 2 years prior to COVID, we had more births than deaths, so we're slipping a little, folks. And we are able to convene today because of all the people who came before and deliberated and voted. And part of our responsibility today is to consider all those who come after us, those people just born. And if you turn to the list of town officers on pages 75 to 76, you will see the names of those who volunteer to make the town run. Your name could be on this list. I'm going to ask the town officers to introduce themselves now. You've met Carol, our town clerk. Here is our is 4/5 of our select board. Would you please? You've got a mic, your own mic, if you need it, and you pass it back and forth and introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, I'm Katie Johnson-Applin. I'm a lifelong Newfane resident. I'm Ann Golub.
Jeff Chevalier, been a Newfane resident since 2014.
I'm Angela Sanborn. I'm a lifelong resident of Newfane, and I'm chair of the select board.
Thank you. And Mike.
And Mike Fitzpatrick, who could not be here today, is also
All right.
the select board.
And our treasurer, would you please introduce yourself?
Hi, Melissa, a lifelong resident of Newfane.
She collects the money and then spends it, as we tell her. I thought that our state senators will be here, but illness has taken them down. But Emily Long will be here later when she finishes at Newfane and give us a legislative report. Meanwhile, among the other things that are up front is a legislative report from Senators Harrison and Hashim. So, help yourself. And they asked me to remind you that they are available through email and phone if you have concerns that they can help you with. So it's been a while. So we use Robert's Rules of Orders, and we might need a reminder in case you forgot how it works. But there were cheat sheets for you, those green sheets, in case you want just a little bit. I'm going to go over them quickly. We use Robert's Rules of Order because that's state law, okay? We can change Robert's rules, but we can't change state law. For instance, if you decided now to change how many ballots are needed, how many votes are needed to do a paper ballot, we could. Right now, state law says 7. We've always used 7. There are some towns that say 25. Just letting you know. Robert's Rules is a parliamentary procedure, and it's designed for an assembly to conduct its business in a fair and orderly way. And frankly, it's cumbersome. You pay me the big bucks to know the rules, okay? Here are some of the basics. You have to be recognized by the moderator to speak. You're going to stand up. Once you're recognized, stand up, say your name. Address your comments to the moderator. Okay? You must make a motion. The motion must be seconded, and I have to repeat it before we can discuss it. The person who makes the motion has the right to speak first. When there are many people who want to talk on an article, the moderator will try to alternate among different points of view. And I'm gonna really try that this year. An article can be amended, and the amendment can be amended, but that's it. Only 2, and all the amendments must be germane to the original article. And I'll be the arbiter of that, but there are ways that you can question my judgment. We will vote on an article when nobody else has anything else to speak, or if someone calls the question. Now, you must be recognized by the moderator to call the question. You can't just shout it out. If you do call the question, it requires a second and a 2/3 majority vote to stop debate, all right? So a point of order is different from a point of information. If you have a question, you have a point of information. If I have made some egregious error, or you don't understand part of the procedure, that's a point of order. A point of order interrupts the proceedings on an issue of procedure. And if the moderator has made an error, A member of the assembly should call a point of order and bring it to the body's attention so it can be remedied. And frankly, as moderator, I'm really grateful to all of you who are keeping track. So, Colonel Roberts has lots more rules. Not knowing them should not be a barrier to participation. So if you have a question about something you want to do, ask me. I might know it. And I also know that for some people, speaking in public, even among your neighbors, can be difficult. And that's okay. One of the good things is that if you address your comments to me, just forget everybody else in the room. I don't think I'm a scary person. You could disagree, but just talk to me, and that should help you get over your nerves. You've got your copies of Robert's Rules, and I just ask you to listen closely to each other. It has been said, I quote, "It should be possible both to believe deeply in the rightness of one's own cause and to hear out the other side. Civility is not a sign of weakness, but of civilization." As always, let's be both passionate and polite. Article 1 has already, let's get the right. Article 1 is, I didn't even bring we got ahead of ourselves. The legal voters of the town of Newfane, Vermont, are hereby notified and warned that pursuant to Title 17, VSA Section 2655, they are to meet at the Williamsville Hall in Williamsville, Vermont on Tuesday, March 7th, 2023 at 9 a.m. to act upon the following articles below. We're already doing that. And Article 1 is to be voted by Australian ballot. It is the election of officers. The polls will be open until 7 p.m. and it will all take place right here. You can see the list. Article 2. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane pay taxes for the ensuing year on a quarterly basis, due on the 15th of August, October, January, and April, with a late charge for interest being at the rate of 50% per month for the current fiscal year and 75% per month for each month thereafter until paid. Do I hear a motion? Okay, but let's go back. Your name, please?
Myra Fassler.
Thank you. Myra Fassler moves it, and sir?
Chris Williams, second.
Chris Williams seconds it. Thank you. So I have to read it again because that's the rules. Article 2. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane pay taxes for the ensuing year on a quarterly basis, due on the 15th of August, October, January, and April, with a late charge for interest being at the rate of 50% per month for the current fiscal year and 75% per month for each month thereafter until paid?
Point of order.
Yes.
I believe it states 50%.
Yeah, it does. You're right. We're going to stand corrected. I was halfway through that when I read it. Thank you. Have you guys registered yet? Have you registered to vote yet? Yeah. You did. Good. Excellent. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's the people behind you who, I got you confused. I'm sorry.
Just did.
Excellent. 2 new voters. Hooray. I'll read it again so we get it right in the record. Bear with me. This is why I get to read it so many times. It's good practice. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane pay taxes for the ensuing year on a quarterly basis, due on the 15th of August, October, January, and April, with a late charge for the interest being at the rate of 0.5% per month for the current fiscal year and 0.75% per month for each month thereafter until paid? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I think we're ready for a vote. We're ready for a vote. So, a vote yes means you are in favor of these rates of 0.5% per month for the current fiscal year and 0.75, but I have to read it again until I get it right, okay? So does everybody know how they're voting? Aye in favor of this as written, not as read, and no if you're against it. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane pay taxes for the ensuing year on a quarterly basis due on the 15th of August, October, January, and April, with a late charge for interest being at the rate of 0.5% per month for the current fiscal year and 0.75 per month for each month thereafter until paid? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And all those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 2 passes. Article 3, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize the treasurer to collect current taxes pursuant to 32 VSA 4791. Do I hear a motion? So moved. You, please tell, so this is for the record. We need to know who you are, please. Are you moving it?
I will. Lindsay Burke.
Thank you. And will somebody second it?
Bedell, second.
Okay, thank you. She'll get a chance next time. We have 41 articles. There are enough for everyone. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize the treasurer to collect current taxes pursuant to 32 VSA 4791? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, are you ready to vote?
Yes.
Myra is, so we will vote. All those in favor of Article 2 as read, please indicate so by saying aye. Article, oh God.
It's Article 3.
We're going to erase that. It's Article 3. I haven't done this in a few years. Okay. It's my excuse. Article 3, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize the treasurer to collect current taxes pursuant to 32 VSA 4791? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 3 passes. We're moving right along to Article 4. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize the Selectboard to sell or otherwise convey property acquired through tax sale proceedings? Margaret, would you like to move that?
I would love to move that, Margaret Wimberger.
Thank you. And who hasn't had a chance to second something? And we have Carol Ross is seconding it. Thank you, ladies. Shall the voters at the Town of Newfane authorize the Selectboard to sell or otherwise convey property acquired through tax sale proceedings? All those in favor, is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will proceed to vote. All those in favor of Article 4 as read, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 4 passes. Before we proceed, I have a few announcements. So there's not a lot of extra literature here, but there is a school board information, and there is the letter from our senators, and there are a few things that didn't get into the town report. One is from the More Free Library, and our librarian, Beckley, is here, and she will pass it out to you. First of all, meet Beckley at the More Free Library, and she's got by the numbers and other information. If you would like a copy, raise your hand. She'll pass it to you. Otherwise, they'll be up here afterwards. And also, the Newbrook PTA report didn't get in. There's even color pictures on this one. And they are providing our refreshments today. And Lindsay will, if you hold up your hand, Lindsay will give you a copy. And then if you don't want one now, you can pick it up here. Are there any other announcements? Not now, okay. So, go back to the warning. Article 5. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane appropriate the sum of $250 to the AIDS Project of Southern Vermont? If you haven't read, you can find the report for this on page 94 of your book. Is there a motion? Yes,
So moved, Tristan
Please.
Johnson, Newfane.
please stand and, yep,
Madam Speaker, Moderator,
yes.
I'd like to propose a blanket motion for all of the Articles 5 through 33.
We have to have a motion on the floor before you can do that, and
Okay.
the motion that you have moved has not been seconded yet. I need a second to Article 5. And Lynn Bedell. So, Article 5 is, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane appropriate the sum of $250 to the AIDS Project of Southern Vermont? Now there can be discussion. Or amendments.
Discussion about the motion to compact.
It hasn't been made yet. There can be, so there can be an amendment to the motion 5 to combine all of them, or not.
Make that amendment.
So, Tristram,
Tristan Johnson again. I propose an amendment to the Article 5 that was just passed, that we consider a blanket motion for all Articles 5 through 33.
Bedell, I second that motion. Amendment, excuse me.
so there's amendment on the floor that reads to a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 through 33. It's been moved and seconded. We are now ready to discuss, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane vote to consider a blanket motion, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane consider a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 through 33? Is there discussion? Please, in back.
Hi, I'm
Please
Gail
stand up.
Robertson. I'm Gail Robertson. I have a question. Does that mean that we wouldn't be reviewing and voting on each appropriation individually?
That is the motion on the, that is the amendment we are discussing now. Okay, so this is what has to happen. You discussed the amendment, the pros and cons of whether we should consider them all or individually. When we finish that discussion, we take a vote. If it passes, then it becomes the main motion, and we vote on it again. If it doesn't pass, we go back to the main motion and start our discussion over. Yes, do you have a question?
I have a follow-up question, which
Yeah.
is, then how would we discuss and change what would be added? Perhaps if a new thing came up that we wanted to make appropriations to, or?
If this amendment passed as an amendment and then as the main motion, it would eliminate whether people could either add or subtract from each individual appropriation.
It would freeze the appropriations.
It would say that the town is going to appropriate $43,513 as written in the budget on page 19.
And how would that change throughout the years?
We're only voting for this year. This is just this year. And I saw a hand here, and I have to remind you that you're only allowed to speak twice to each item. But no, that point of information is different. Yeah, go ahead.
I think this is a great idea, not to suggest that multiple readings of each article would be tedious.
couldn't part of the discussion of the overall amendment then be an individual change, if there is such a thing?
Yes, it could be.
Okay.
Yes.
Christine White, Newfane resident. I don't agree with this. I think that it's unlikely that everybody in the room agrees with every single one of the articles. And even though I know it's tedious and it takes a long time, I think they should be addressed separately.
Madam
Back?
Moderator, I
I'm
withdraw
sorry,
my
I'm
motion.
sorry. You just a minute. That takes precedence?
Sorry?
That takes, to withdraw your motion takes precedence.
Okay.
So, you need to say it. I need you to say it.
I would like to withdraw my motion in
Okay?
consideration of my dear friend from West River Stables who has some good points she would like to make.
So, the maker of a motion can withdraw it. I'm actually, you've got me stumped. I think I think you have to withdraw your motion much earlier in the discussion. And I think we're gonna finish this. Can you help me out? It's really good to have,
But my impression would be to call for a vote, and if people feel that they do not want to vote on a single motion, they can, and if they want to go back through it all over, they can turn it down.
thank you, that is the wisdom of our former moderator, who I'm always glad to see in the audience. So we're going to continue this, and we'll decide democratically whether we want to pass this amendment and do a blanket or do it individually. And then we still have to vote on the main motion where there is opportunity for people to speak to it. So is there anyone else who hasn't spoken who wants to speak either in favor or against this amendment? Yes.
Chris Trebert, South Newfane. I'm not sure if this is order or information or just confusion.
Mm-hmm.
Can we have something, as what Tom was suggesting, an amendment that, pardon me if this language is wrong, but that we agree if we all see this as could be one vote for all of these things as one package, except if someone, as Christine pointed out, there might be one or two issues that someone has that they could be raised individually. Is there a way to somehow combine it?
There's a way to do this. I mean, and yes. The short answer, yes. We still need to decide on this amendment. We can pass the amendment and then we're done with special appropriations. Well, no, then we're done with the amendment. We go back to special appropriations as it's written, each one. Or, no, if we pass this amendment, then we're done. We still have to go back. We pass the amendment. We have to vote on it. It becomes Article 5, and we vote on it. If we defeat the amendment, we are back to Articles 5 through 33. So there are two steps here, and I'll repeat it again. Right now, we're only discussing and deciding the amendment to talk about, to make a blanket, combine all the special appropriations. And that we have to decide whether that's what we want to do or not. If it passes, we still have to vote on, Article 5 becomes, shall we pass all these? If we don't pass on it, we don't. I'm wondering if there's someone from the select board who would speak to why these appear individually. Could you explain can you explain the process of how people come to the town to make appropriations?
The special appropriations, people come to our budget meeting, or our regular select board meetings, and present for their agencies, so to speak, and request a certain amount of money. We decided that it's appropriate to have it as a separate article for each, for the town to decide on how to spend their money.
So,
If members.
just a minute. I would like to recognize Dan DeWalt first. Okay.
I'd like to call the question on the amendment. I'd like to call the question. The amendment.
There is a motion to call the question, which has to be seconded, and then if it's seconded, it has to be voted by 2/3 majority to pass, to end discussion. Myra Fassler seconds it. So now, there has to be, what we're voting on is to end discussion. And I did see a lot more hands up. Just letting you know that it looked like more people wanted to talk about this. So, I need the Board of Civil Authority, because I need to know that there's a 2/3. Who's the Board of Civil Authority? Do we have, they're mostly very busy, huh? Okay. So, all those in favor of calling the question and ending discussion, I'm asking you, if you are in favor of that, please stand. Can the Board of Civil Authority please don't sit down until you've been counted. This is to end discussion. Do we have a number? Please sit down. Please sit down. If you are in favor of not ending discussion, please rise. I'm going to just let it go. I think that it's pretty clear we've got 2/3 majority that want to continue speaking, and the motion to end discussion fails. So let's continue. And I wanted to acknowledge, yes, Gloria.
Hi, Gloria Newfane, and I think that we need to back up historically, because, and I believe Pete can back this up more than I can.
Speak up or use a microphone, please. There's a microphone in the middle aisle.
Madam Chairman, Gloria Cristelli Newfane, and sorry, I usually project more loudly, but I was down for 3 days with a cold. So what happened is that I think we need to go back historically to how the appropriations have been made. Throughout most of my time, we've always done it as a group. And when COVID came, we decided we had to vote on them. It doesn't mean that the select board hasn't chosen to do that and do it individually. So going back to statement, will this always be set in stone? It would only be reverting back to what the town previously did for all of the social services. And that brings me to the last point, is that there were amendments made to the massive list. I remember changing something. Is that true? Thanks, Myra. So that there is a process there. And we probably have to go back to town reports to figure out the logistics of that. So 2 things. We might just go back historically to doing it en masse, but to assure that things can be amended. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak? Yes, sir.
Dan Brooks. Is there any chance, I know during COVID we had it on the Australian ballot, or if you're in the ballot, if we could actually just include more people on these decisions that can't make it here and have it on the Australian ballot as individual things, so you could say yes or no, if you agree or don't agree. Is there any chance of doing that again?
Not today. I don't know the answer to that going forward unless we go to an entirely,
More people's decision.
I understand what you're saying, but today we are bound by this warning and these articles. Okay? And this is really interesting procedural issues that we need to discuss as a town, and I believe that's Chris in the back.
I'm wondering if the people that may have questions about the 5 to 33 could articulate which are the ones that we might want to pull out and talk about.
Since we are at this point still discussing whether or not we want to vote on this amendment, I'm going to say we can't do that. It doesn't make sense to do that now. Right now, we're discussing the amendment to, there is a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 to 33. So please, if you have a comment about that amendment, this is your time to speak.
One more point.
Please.
So in an attempt to save time, we're wasting time here, but if we do consolidate it, pass it, we'll figure them all out at the same time, but in the discussion, we could still take up individual things if necessary. Right. Correct?
Yes.
So, what the heck?
Or we could just go through it one by one and save this discussion. Does anyone have another opinion against this? That was in favor of this amendment. Does anyone else want to speak against the amendment? Does anyone else want to speak to the amendment at all? It seems as if we're ready to vote on the amendment. Oh, there's somebody in back. Beckley.
Library, town resident. I just want to confirm that this gentleman says.
We can't.
I just want to confirm, as this gentleman says, that if we vote on this amendment, we can still discuss and change items within that range of articles, because we'd like the opportunity to discuss the article for the More Free Library. So that would be, so if this gentleman is correct and you confirm that.
I'm confirming that.
Then that helps clarify it. Thank you.
To clarify that, if this amendment passes and takes precedent, it becomes Article 5, we will then vote on all those articles, 5 through 33, all those special appropriations, and we can spend, we can never have more than 2 amendments on the floor at a time, but we can amend each one of those appropriations, and we can just make amendments all day until we've got the budget exactly as we want it, exactly as you want it. This is your meeting. I saw another hand in back. Did you want to speak, sir?
Just for clarity, if we pass this blanket amendment, people can then propose subsequent amendments for additional line items of the debate. Is that correct?
If this amendment passes, we still have to vote on it again because it becomes Article 5. Okay? Yeah, it could. So, and then if it passes as Article 5, so there are 2 more chances to make this amendment, how we're going to proceed, or there are 2 more chances to go back to the original idea. Or no, there's one more chance to go back to the original idea of voting individually.
So there's a mechanism in place by which people, for instance, for the More Free Library, can propose amendments to the blanket.
They could, but every single one of these ones could then be amended, which is essentially what could happen if we go through them all one at a time. So right now we're talking about this amendment, whether we want to go to not go through them one at a time, to just say we're going to pass them. We want to talk about it as one item of $43,513. And if that passes, then we can talk about, well, do you want to make it go up or down? And which ones do you want to have go up and down? And there's probably for everyone here, there's some feeling about which way to go with each one. Or we can defeat the motion and continue one by one. And if there is nobody, then we just go on. And yes. Thank you.
I wanted to ask the select board if when they receive requests from these people, from these organizations, if they came personally to you and gave you at your meeting or however you met with them, and you were able to ask them questions as to why they asked for that specific amount, or did you just make that decision without any kind of conversations to those who are requesting that amount?
Is there someone on the select board who'd like to answer that?
I'd be happy to. Yes, we discussed it with each person. Many of these appropriations are the same amounts that the groups have asked for in the past. In some cases, they were significantly more, and we suggested that they reevaluate their requests. In 2 cases, we suggested that organizations request funds from ARPA rather than from social appropriations. Our overall goal was to keep the funding for social appropriations similar to where it has been before. It is a little bit higher this year, but it's still within the same range. And with each organization that came forward, they had to present a form that talked about what they do, their overall budget, how much they were requesting, and how they service people specifically in Newfane. So there was a format for the discussions that was uniform across the board. And anyone who's interested in any of those conversations, all of it is on our famous BCTV, so it can all be viewed as well.
So you would have voted to allow those requests to be in front of us today based on your decisions?
That is correct. We evaluated them and then agreed that they should go forward.
All right, thank you.
I would like to add to that the select board meetings, when these happen, are available. People can attend them by Zoom or in person. And also that a large part of this book, pages 94 through 122, are all about each of these organizations, and I'm sure you all read them, so you know what you're voting on. There was this person here.
Emily Wool, Newfane. While I appreciate the spirit of this amendment to try and save us time, it kind of seems like it would just be a procedural nightmare to follow Robert's Rules of Orders to be able to deal with all these appropriations together as a whole. So I think I'll be voting no against this amendment because I think honestly it'll save us time if we just go through it one by one.
Yes.
Patricia Haller in Newfane. In the past, there have been town meetings when...
Excuse me, could we not, we need to hear what she's saying? Thank you.
In the past, there have been town meetings where social services not represented in the town report have asked to be added to the budget. Perhaps this was eons ago. Is that still, I guess, a point of information? Is that still a possibility, or do you have a timeline, a deadline for requests? Thank you.
So a motion could be made to add, I mean, that's something you can do from the floor. Whether you can get other people to go along with you is something else. Yeah, sir.
Big fan of myself has been a point of information. I wonder if a quick indication by hand of how many people want to speak to a particular part of this motion might give us an indication of how we should continue our discussion and vote.
Thank you. The gentleman asks for an indication of how many people in the body would have a particular line item in these Articles 5 through 33 that they would like to speak to. 2, 3. All right. So people can change their minds. But if it seems as if there are three people want to bring up. Are you each bringing up? I'm just curious. You don't have to. You don't really have to answer this question. Do you want to just talk about one item, or do you want to bring up several? Oh, we've got several items. Several being more than 3. More than 3. Yes.
I want to speak to 3 different.
3. Okay. So.
It's not to change amounts. So are we talking about amending to play around with it or support?
Let me reiterate this, because this is, we are talking about the amendment. We've been talking about it for about 15 minutes. To make a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 through 33. And we have to decide if that's what we want to do or not. Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, we're going to vote on the amendment. An aye vote means that you want to consolidate Articles 5 through 33. A no vote means that you want to go back to Article 5 and go through each item. Are there any questions about how to vote? Okay. So the amendment is a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 through 33. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. The amendment passes. So now, Article 5 reads, shall the voters of the town of Newfane make a blanket motion consolidating Articles 5 through 33? That's, can you please, I'm sorry. Please stand up and be, okay.
Gail Robertson again.
Excuse me?
My name is Gail Robertson.
Yes?
So I didn't hear that quite as clearly as you appeared to, and I'm wondering if there's a way for us to count that, or is that not done?
Are you requesting a division of the House to
I guess I am.
count the votes?
Yeah.
We will do a division of the House. Okay, so we're going to do a rising vote. We are, we're back on the amendment. Okay, I just want this to be squeaky clean. I don't want there to be any question about this, and I need your attention a little longer. Is it a point of information?
Point of order, do we have to vote on whether or not to divide the House?
No. If it were a paper ballot, yes, but no. So we are re-voting on the amendment to make sure that everybody is satisfied. If you are in favor, if you vote aye, you are in favor of consolidating, making a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 through 33. If you are against it, you want to go back to the original. All you want to do is go back to Article 5 as it's written. Okay? So I'm going to ask all those in favor of consolidating Articles 5 through 35 to please indicate so by standing. And the Board of Civil Authority will count. Right, right. Okay, please sit down.
All right.
I would, please. All those opposed to the amendment to make a blanket motion to consolidate Articles 5 through 33, please indicate so by standing. Okay, and I have to just remind the Board of Civil Authority, I was standing for both and voting for neither, so you don't count me, thank you. Thank you. One of the great privileges of being a moderator is I don't have to vote. So there were 66 votes, was it 60? 60 votes in favor and 16 opposed. The ayes have it. The amendment passes. So now, Article 5 reads, I'm going to write this down. Give me a moment.
So on the amendment, are you going to have the amount, or are we going to do that separate?
This is nothing to do with money. This is everything to do with procedure.
Okay, and then we're going to vote on the money.
Let's just do one thing at a time, okay? It'll be very clear, okay?
Nice apology letter today.
Oh.
Very well done. It didn't work with me. Probably not.
Although, Carol. Yeah. Right. Okay. Right. So, procedurally, where is Dan DeWalt, who made this motion? I need to, I'm going to tell you how this is going to have to read. Because it wasn't you to make the motion? I'm sorry. It was Tristan?
Yeah, me.
Okay. We have to put the money amount in.
I'm sorry?
We have to put the money amount in. Okay? So,
You don't have enough toes for that.
I've got it. Yep. But I just want, we're going to do this.
$43,513.
So the Article 5 has been amended to read, shall the voters, the Town of Newfane, appropriate the sum of $43,513 to encompass Articles 5 through 33. Pete, does that seem like the way to do this?
Yeah, that's excellent.
I was asking, excuse me, I was asking Pete Van Loan in front of, I'm asking Pete if this is the way to do this. Do you think?
Go.
Go. I'm the one who will get hung. So now we have, this is the article we now have for Article 5. Article 5 now reads, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane appropriate the sum of $43,513 to consolidate Articles 5 through 33. I need a motion.
So moved, Tom Bedell.
Tom Bedell. I need a second. Meg Spicer. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane appropriate the amount of $43,513 to consolidate Articles 5 through 33? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Yes. Please stand up.
I'm sorry, Margaret Wimberger, South Newfane, I'm yelling.
There's a mic. There's a mic that you could use.
Is this where we would discuss changes to the amounts right now?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. I do.
Yes.
Beckley Gaudette.
Beckley, we either need you, yeah, or come and use a mic.
I think you can hear me.
No. I spend so much time setting up these mics. Please use them.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
A little closer?
Well, they can hear you.
Thank
It's
you. Beckley Gaudette, Morfree Library, town resident. Morfree Library was one of the organizations that had a very positive conversation with the Selectboard about the dollar amount that is in the article. Unfortunately, on our part, we miscommunicated the amount that should be there. So $1,000 is puts us at half of what we received last year from the town. So our amendment is that we request that that dollar figure is raised by $1,000 and that the dollar figure is $2,000 instead of $1,000.
So, the amendment.
The amendment is to raise it. Yeah.
Raise the Morfree Library appropriation to $2,000. Is that correct?
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? That was Beckley. The second is? Lynn Bedell. Thank you. Gee, her voice has gone down. All right, so we have an amendment to raise the Morfree Library appropriation to $2,000. This is the motion on the floor. It is open for discussion. Is there anyone who would like to speak, starting with Beckley? Yes.
Did you say to raise it to $2,000 or up to?
To raise the total appropriation to $2,000. Is there any discussion? We're going to have a phone call. Tom Bedell, do you want to speak?
I think that's a great idea. Let's do it.
This is an amendment. Any other discussion? Do you want to call the question, or do you want to see if there's any other, if you call the question, we have to vote? If there's no other discussion, we can just vote.
Point of order?
Yeah.
Make it even more complicated. Am I under the impression that that's one of the two amendments to the entire group that can be made?
No, we can make more than.
I'm not sure. We're gonna find out in just a minute. This is right now we have one amendment. We can have another amendment, but that's where we're going now. We're working with, and the next amendment has to be germane to this amendment. Yeah.
So I think you can only amend twice.
Yes.
Not the article, but you can only amend an amendment one other time.
Right.
You can have other amendments in the article. Correct?
we're gonna have to recess because I'm not sure. So, we have an amendment and there seems to be no other discussion on this amendment. Is there? The amendment is to amend Article 5
Excuse me, point
to
of
raise,
order.
yes?
The question was called, so there needs to be a vote. It cannot be skipped.
You did call the question and I tried to dissuade you. Do you want to call the question?
Does that have to be seconded?
It does have to be seconded, or you are actually also can withdraw it.
That if there's a problem with other amendments. I'll withdraw
I mean, if you want to call the question, we're going to vote on this amendment. This amendment now. So I want to make sure. If you call the question.
You only have one other amendment for this entire article. Speak up.
Please speak only once at a time. Let's just really, this is very difficult. All right? And we need order.
Because I think we need to clarify how many amendments we can have on this article before we vote on one of them and, only have one left. If we need to
That's right. And I think that I am going to recess now so that I can do the research because I am not sure if we can do what you, I know what you wanted to do, but I'm not sure that's going to work.
I'll withdraw my.
You're withdrawing, okay. And we're going to recess for 5 minutes. We'll be back in 5 minutes, all right? Which is at 6 minutes after 10. Thank you. Please take your seats. We have work to do.
Can I make a brief announcement?
Yeah.
About the voting? Yeah. Okay, so a brief announcement about your voting. When you put your ballot in the tabulator, wait for it to give you a little beeps that tells you it accepted it. Because we've had 2 be rejected by the machine and we didn't know whose ballots they were because you didn't stay there. So stay there for 3 seconds to make sure it accepts your ballot. Please, thank you.
All right. Welcome back. I'm sorry I lost my temper. This is a little complicated, but we've got it figured out. It is more complicated than if we'd gone through each one separately, but this is what we've decided to do. The rules are, as Laura Wallingford-Bacon just reminded us, is we can amend an amendment. So this is going to be, you're going to be experts in Robert's rules by the end of this day. And I just want to remind you that as important as these $43,513 are, we also have several $1 million to vote on later. So don't get too tired yet. Right now, we are working on our amended Article 5, which reads that we are going to combine Articles 5 to 533 and appropriate the amount of $43,513. That's our main amendment. It's not exactly how it's written, but that's the gist of it. And we now have an amendment on the floor that we're discussing to raise the more free library appropriation to $2,000, which would increase Article 5 to read that it's now at $43,513. All right?
44.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's 44. Right. It's 44. Sorry. Numbers have never been my strong suit, especially under pressure. So.
I have a point of information.
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify a piece of information beyond what has just been discussed, just so everyone has the full picture. I would just want to say I personally am in favor of raising the appropriation for the library. Last year they had requested $2,700. This year it was originally $1,000. Now they're asking for $2,000. As many of us know, the library is under severe physical duress and needs some major renovations. The library came to the board and also asked for a separate appropriation, or not appropriation is the wrong word, but a separate amount of money from our ARPA fund. They asked for $10,100 specifically to address, I believe it's the porch, the insulation, and the ramp. So this, the Select Board approved that appropriation, so it's $10,100. That is going specifically for the physical repairs to the building. This amendment, as part of social appropriations, they use for their ongoing expenses and the running of the library. So they are two very, I know money is money, but it is still two very different uses for the money. So I just wanted everyone to be clear on that fact. Did you have anything else you wanted to add, Becky?
So, I'm sorry.
I just want to know exactly what to add.
Well, actually.
I know you're the moderator, I should go to you.
Right, right. So that we are discussing this amendment now. And I invite anybody else who has any conversations and want to say anything about this amendment to raise the more free library appropriation to $2,000, which raises our special appropriations in Article 5 to $44,513. Is there any more discussion about this? Yes.
Have you clarified?
Can you?
Have you clarified whether we can have an infinite number of amendments to this article?
Yes, I can clarify this. This is how it's going to work. Thank you. I depend on you to keep me on track. We will vote on this amendment. If it passes, it becomes part of Article 5, becomes $44,513. It can be amended, someone can amend it now to include another appropriation, or when we go back to Article 5, someone can amend it with a first amendment. So there are two ways of doing this. And we can just make amendments until it is exactly how you want it, because this is your meeting. Is that clear?
Yes.
Sir, in back.
Point of interest, 10 Bauer, Newfane. Do we have the $1,000?
Well, this meeting actually is to decide whether collectively we have the $1,000 or not. That's what we're doing here, is deciding how much money we want to raise by taxes. So, and is Doris here?
No.
Doris knows. It's, yeah, where's Doris when you need her? Does anybody know that figure?
$25,000.
So
$25,000. Is that what you're looking for?
yeah, but how much that cost each person?
Oh, for $1,000?
Yeah.
It's gotta be pennies, that's not gonna be anything.
So I'm going to ask Melissa Brown, our treasurer, to explain what she just explained to me, which I know what she's talking about.
So for every $25,000 that we have in expenses, or increase the budget by $25,000, it raises our taxes by 1 cent.
1 cent.
1 cent. On 100,000, yeah.
On $100,000 worth of real estate, okay? So, we don't have any money right now to spend. You are going to decide how much money we're going to raise by taxes to spend. Yes?
Please, Bruce Rosso, Williamsville, please call the question.
So, is there a second to call the question on amendment? We'll take Carol Ross. The question has been called. We're voting only on the amendment, okay? To raise, shall the voters of the town of Newfane amend Article 5 to raise the Moore Free Library appropriation to $2,000, changing our special appropriations to $44,513. So, do you understand? Okay. All those in favor of this amendment, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. We are now back to Article 5, which reads, shall the voters of the town of Newfane combine Articles 5 through 33 to appropriate $44,513,000. Is there any discussion? Does anybody want to make another amendment?
Chris has her hand up.
Chris, please stand up. Tell everybody who you are. Right.
There are 8 items on this list that I would like to have discussed. I am not going to do that. Hello?
Yeah, I can. That's good.
There are 8 items on this list that I would have liked to have discussed, but I am not going to do that. It's just, this is getting crazy.
We have all day.
And I keep
losing
my place.
Would you like to make an amendment or
Yes,
just
I
a discussion?
would.
Okay.
Yes, I would. I would like to remove the 5,100. I make a motion to amend the number to remove the $5,178 for SEVEDS. Exactly, what is it? So, and the reason for my motion is that the people requesting were asked to give information about how many people they served within our town. This is a regionally funded operation, and I saw nothing that said how many people were served in our town.
So there is a motion to eliminate $5,178 appropriated for SEVEDS. And for those who are curious,
Page 108.
it's on page 108. And I need a second. Is there a second? Carol Hatcher has seconded. And so I will read the motion again, and then we can discuss it. It is a motion to eliminate $5,178 for SEVEDS. So this is now the motion on the floor. So this is Carol Chris jumped the gun and gave us her discussion. Is there anyone who has another opinion? Go ahead.
Carol Ross, can you just quickly tell us what that means, what that acronym stands for? And
It's, I can direct you to page, just a minute, one person at a time, please. You'll find the information on page 108. That's all I can do, is tell you that. So, and then there's a point of information. Yes.
First of all, I want to explain that there is another document that each of the organizations fill out. And just to save paper, we don't put all of them in the book. But I would like to just explain who SEDVEDS is and how many families they did directly serve within Newfane. I'm sorry that information wasn't in the published book, but it is part of the application that they give to the select board that is available for anyone. SEDVEDS is a regional organization that does economic development research. They have helped us when we've gone to them with questions, trying to figure out questions about how to do any kind of development activity here. I personally find them extremely helpful. They have estimated that they have served 21 Newfane residents directly. In addition to that, because they're working on a regional basis, they're looking at economic development overall for the southern part of our county. I have to say I have found their work incredibly useful and helpful, and if people want more information, I could read you the description that they gave to the select board.
Is that in the town report?
It's unfortunately,
No, it's not.
What they do is they fill out a form for us, and then they fill out sort of like a letter to the community. So some of the information in the form to us does not make it into the book.
Okay. Is there anyone else who wants to speak? That was for it, against it, for it, in favor of keeping the appropriation.
I have a question.
Okay.
Is it true that all the appropriations now under the umbrella of Article 5 were approved by the Select Board?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Hi, Scott Ron with Newfane. I'd like to speak against the amendment. Thank you. While I do not know how it will be exactly allocated, I have grown in the past year to be quite impressed with BDCC, especially in terms of their support for the new Afghan arrivals, as well as new families that will be coming on. So most of the Afghan arrivals were placed in Brattleboro, but that was because of their need for close transportation. So in a sense, we are, by supporting this expenditure, we're supporting within the entire county and not just Newfane itself.
Can you just explain the connection between BCDD and SEVEDS? Or is that like beyond?
I am not able to.
Okay. There's somebody, Kim, can you do that?
Yeah, Kim Friedman, South Newfane. So I'm very familiar with the Brattleboro Credit Development Corporation, and I agree completely with you that it's important that we think regionally. Every region has its own credit corporation. SEVED is the umbrella for all of the credit corporations in the southeastern Vermont. So it's an umbrella organization that supports each credit development corporation. And since I'm talking, I think we would be shooting ourselves in the foot to not support, to not fully fund this appropriation, because this area needs all the support in terms of economic development that we can get. And this is, in my opinion, the most strategic body that is thinking about economic development in southeastern Vermont.
Thank you. Lindsay.
Lindsay Burke from Newfane. I am in favor of not funding them, whichever that is in this case. I don't remember if we're going yes or no, but because we already fund BDCC partly through the school budget, and so they're already, that's going to be in the school budget vote as well, for the portion of their work that goes through the school. Also, I find it hard to justify spending more than $1,100 than we would spend on Grace Cottage Hospital to this organization. It just is the dollar amount is significantly larger than all of the other asks. So that's my 2 cents.
Before you can speak a second time, we need to hear from people who haven't spoken the first time. We have a first-time speaker.
I'm Sarah McConnell, and I am new to Newfane.
Welcome.
We're showing you our best.
You can still turn around.
I recently started a position at BDCC as a small business advisor and loan assistant.
Yeah, please use the mic.
So, hello. I recently started a position with BDCC, and so I'm learning the ins and outs of how SVEDS, the Southern Vermont Economic Development Council, coincides with BDCC. They are separate entities, so what you're giving to BDCC does not help SVEDS except for relationship-wise. So SVEDS needs this money in order to help the region. What they do is they're pretty much a cog that helps all the other towns communicate. If one town has a problem and another town has a different problem, but they're similar, we can connect those dots and help you guys see what's accomplishable within economic development. So I think that is a good thing to fund this project.
Right.
Thank you.
Could you just please tell us your name again?
Sarah McConnell.
Sarah McConnell, welcome. Does anybody else want to speak to this for the first time? So, Chris White, you can speak for a second time. Just a reminder that people can only speak twice to each motion.
Chris White, Newfane. I would just like to have it explained to me what the difference is between this and Wyndham Regional Commission, because it seems like they do a lot of the same things.
Is there anyone who can speak to the difference between these two things? Ann, go ahead.
The Wyndham Regional Commission is principally a planning organization. I would say that they are the organization that we turn to the most for help. They are directly helping individual towns when you're looking for a grant from the state for sidewalks, for sewers, for, any kind of zoning help, housing. They are the ones that we go to. Anything that relates to planning, we go to Wyndham Regional Commission. Anything related to region, and so they're much more working directly with the towns, while SEVEDS and BDCC is really much more looking at the region as a whole from an economic development perspective. So if you're going to try to figure out how to build more housing in your community, you're going to go talk to Wyndham Regional Commission, because you need that kind of planning help. If you want to figure out how can you bring in more economic development into your town, you're going to go talk to BDCC and SEVEDS and see what they can do for you. And I just would say we've worked with all of these organizations in the last year alone, as well as in previous years.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to this amendment? Yes, sir.
Mike McConnell, also new to Newfane. I work for Wyndham Regional. I'm not here on their behalf. I'm here as our president. We've only been here a short time, but I think one of the main things that I've noticed is that towns, much like Newfane, Dummerston, Wilmington, whatever, is a lack of capacity from a municipal sense. And I would say that both Wyndham and BDCC basically act as additional employees for the towns. So that I would support keeping this appropriation in the agenda. Or in the budget. Yes.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, I think we are ready to vote on this amendment. This is an amendment to our already amended Article 5.
Yeah.
Okay?
Point of order?
Yes?
I believe that there was already a count and approval of the revised Article 5.
Yes.
So we're not voting on an amendment, we're voting on a motion to approve Article 5 as amended, but it's already been approved.
No, it was, you're correct, it was approved, but it was subsequently amended to eliminate $5,178. That's what we have been discussing. And that's what we are now, I believe, we are now ready to vote on. Is that? Thank you. All right. So I have to do this as a positive, but shall the voters approve removing $5,078 appropriations for SEVEDS from Article 5? And that would change Article 5. Yeah. Hold on a second. Unless you got it. Do you have it for me? 39335. Okay. So, because this is an amendment, the way to say this is, shall the voters reduce Article 5 as amended to $39,335 by eliminating the SEVEDS appropriation of $5,078. $5,178. All right. Does everybody understand what an aye vote is and what a no vote is? Anyone have any questions about how to vote? I mean, what your vote will be, and I can tell you how to vote. An aye vote is to reduce the special appropriations. Yes. So all those in favor of this amendment to reduce the SEVEDS appropriation of $5,178 from Article 5, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those who are opposed by saying no. No. The noes appear to have it, and the amendment fails. So we are now back at Article 5 as amended, which is to amend Article 5 to combine Articles 5 through 33 as amended to $44,513. Anyone want to amend anything else?
Point of order.
Yeah.
Confusion. Article 5, we have a new Article 5, which has.
Right.
Right. You just said amend at the beginning of that, which made it seem like I didn't.
Article 5 is not as written in here. Article 5. Article 5 was became 43,513, and then you have approved it to be now 44,513. And that's where we are now. I mean, it has been amended. So I just want to make sure everybody understands where we are. Are there any questions about where we are? So my question for you is, where are we going next? Yeah.
Hi.
Katie.
I'm Katie Johnson-Eppin. My sole hesitation on all of the appropriations is the Southeastern Vermont Transit DBA for the mover, which still fails to provide us with public transportation up and down the Route 30 corridor. They've asked for $750. For the last 2 years, I have voted no on this because I don't.
So before, excuse me, there is no motion on the floor. Could you please put a motion on the floor before you start a discussion?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I would like to make a motion to remove the $750 to Southeastern Vermont Transit DBA the mover.
So I'm going to be...
Temporarily Article 8.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest wording so that it is stated positively, so to speak. So your motion is to reduce Article 5 by $750, by, I need the total number would be 44. No, taking it out, taking it out.
Taking it out. 43,763.
763. To reduce Article 5 to 43,763 by removing $750 for the mover. Is there a second?
I'll second.
And Angela is seconding it. So, we are now discussing this amendment, which is to reduce the total amount already decided in Article 5 from $44,513 to $43,763 by removing $750 appropriation for the mover. Is there any discussion? Are you a Newfane voter? Yeah. Oh, right. I'm sorry. You have to tell us who you are.
I'm Brenda Siegel.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to say that I support giving $750 to the mover because I should also say that I'm on the the State of Vermont's Public Transit Advisory Commission. And so I have been able to have a lot of discussions about how public transit needs to increase. And believe me, I'm a squeaky wheel about it getting to Newfane. But it won't benefit us to take any funding away if we want to keep trying to push to public transit towards Newfane. And as someone who has struggled economically and at times for long periods of time not had a vehicle to get from here to work, I think it's incredibly essential to have that appropriation and continue to have access to that argument to get it here. And believe me, I am, as a community member, I'm on that Transit Advisory Commission as a member of Community Vermont Elders, but I spend at least one time every meeting, but if not several, saying there is no transit in our rural communities, including my hometown of Newfane, and we need to get it there. And we need these appropriations in order to do that. Anytime we remove funding from it, we will not be able to increase transportation, and we need to.
Is there anyone with an opposing point of view? Yeah?
Are you calling?
No, first I want to get different points of view first. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Dale, again.
Can you stand up, please?
I just have a question.
Okay.
I'm curious how many years we've been funding them without receiving any benefit.
Is there anyone who can answer that question?
I don't know offhand.
There doesn't seem to be an available answer now. Is there anyone who wants to speak at all?
Lindsay Burke from Newfane. I would agree that we should pull the 750 because how many years should we continue to fund it without seeing at least an action plan of, hey, we have, you know, an actual idea of how we're going to get service to these towns. It's nice to say that they need the money to make it happen, but more importantly, they need a plan to make it happen.
And Margaret.
Margaret Wimberger, South Newfane. I have a question. I'm under the impression that the mover is the source of funding for Dial-A-Ride. Does anyone know if that's true? And that is used by a lot of local Newfaners, especially older folks.
Margaret, is that where they, mainly seniors, call and get
I think
rides
it's mainly
to?
seniors. I don't know if it's mainly. Is that? That's what I think.
Yeah, Gloria, please wait to be acknowledged. Thank you. Is there any other discussion?
I would like to make.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that, you know, I think it's important to think of ourselves as members not only of the town of Newfane, but the community of Wyndham. And the services that are provided throughout our town, even if at the moment we may not be receiving the benefit of this particular appropriation, we are a member of a larger community, and keeping that strong and healthy and having a variety of services makes this a much more economically appealing region makes us stronger overall, and gives us much greater potential for growth going forward than if we do not have it.
Chris White.
Microphone again.
Lindsay put it very well. We need to know how much longer we're going to have to do this before we see benefit in order to make a decision, I would think.
Is there anyone else? Yes. Kate.
Williamsville. I don't know directly the answer if the mover provides our dial-ride, but I will say that just a quick look at their website shows that they provide free door-to-door transportation for riders age 60 or over, and for persons with ADA-defined disabilities. I think this is really important when we think about our larger community and folks, whether we live across one town line or another, we all know people who need those services, and even if we don't say anything,
Did you want to speak? Myra? Oh, we couldn't hear you. So can you come and use a mic and speak slowly, please?
I just was saying that I just did a quick search, and I cannot speak for the mover and Wyndham Regional Commission and whether the mover is working directly with Wyndham Regional Commission to provide rides for Newfane residents, but their website does say that they do provide those rides clearly in their service area for people over 60 and people with disabilities. And I was just saying that whether we quibble about the town lines, I think it's important to consider that need in the larger community.
Thank you.
Point of information.
And excuse me, yeah?
Just that it's not Wyndham Regional Commission that they work with, but Wyndham overall.
Sorry, I was just connecting the links on the, yeah, sorry.
Okay. I recognize Myra Fassler.
Myra Fassler, I no longer am able to drive. I no longer have a car. The mover has been saving my sanity. I need the mover for doctor's appointments, and occasionally they are even able to make accommodations for people who have haircuts, who go shopping, marketing, and it is just the most wonderful resource that we have. We live in a rural area. There is no bus service. We call. I don't know what you're talking about. A dial. A mover is the thing that saves my sanity. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? I want to make sure everybody who's spoken once gets, everybody who wants to speak once gets a chance.
I'm Susan Dano. I'm a case manager with Senior Solutions, so I can attest to what this woman just said about
Yeah.
the...
Can you just step up to this mic, please? And you have to... You have
go
to
down
just,
low.
you can, no. It comes up, it doesn't stay up. You have to just lift it up. Lift the whole thing up.
Okay.
There you go.
I'm Susan Dano. I'm a case manager with Senior Solutions, and so I can attest to what you just said. I work with a number of older Vermonters and people with disabilities who are under the age of 60, and they have taken advantage, even in our town, in our area of Newfane, to get to doctor's appointments, to get to the gathering place, to get to, you know, for people with disabilities, they have groups in Brattleboro, and they get there for those as well. So this is, it may not be a majority, but it is still serving our community in really important ways.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken on this yet who would like to speak? So you want to speak for your second time?
Katie Johnson Athlon. I would like to say one more thing, which is I don't believe that our $750 will stop anyone from being able to access that service, but I do feel like it may kick movers in the pants just a little bit because we still don't have public transportation on the Route 30 corridor. That is a continued frustration, and it might be the impetus to actually get something to happen. I attended a meeting a year and a half ago where they were talking about having a test run, and the state still has not approved that for lack of funding because they haven't shown enough. They haven't been given the money from the state, which is what they're waiting on. At what point will we get this service? I don't know, but I hope it comes sooner rather than later so that the entire population gets to benefit from public transportation. And I don't think it will affect the seniors who are currently receiving rides.
Okay, so now we're into the second, people speaking for the second time, and I recognize Brenda first.
Again, Brenda Siegel from Newfane, and I just wanted to say two things. One is I meant to say before that even when there was no public transit here, my son used it to get to activities that otherwise he would not have had access to once we were able to get him in to town, and otherwise that would not have been a possibility for him. And I would say that that's an incredible benefit as well. Also, even if it doesn't take away the service to seniors, our people in our community are using it, and so it makes sense for us to pay for that. And then finally, I'm going to say that there are lots of pilots going on for microtransit around the state, and the inability of public transit to get the funding that they need is not their fault. It's because when we're in those public transit advisory commission meetings, one of the things that's become clear to me is that we don't give enough chance for ridership to actually increase, and we don't do enough education around ridership to increase, and then it puts these public transit businesses and nonprofits, there's both, into a negative position when they're trying to get funding from the state, instead of us deciding that public transit should go everywhere. So I think penalizing the mover for not having funding inaccessible from the state when there's a systemic issue in how the funding gets from the state to these public transit. Instead, we should be figuring out ways to work with them to advocate to the state that we want it here and get that funding to the mover. That's really what I think, and so I just want to say that I would not be in favor, as clearly, of removing that funding from the budget.
Is there any other discussion on this amendment to Article 5? Hearing none, we're ready for a vote. So the motion is to reduce Article 5 to $43,763 by removing $750 from the mover. If you vote in favor, you're voting for a reduction. If you're voting no, you're voting for continuing as we have it. So, all those in favor of this amendment, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by saying no?
No.
The noes appear to have it. The noes have it, and this amendment fails. Article 5 still reads, or now reads, to appropriate the sum of $44,513. What's your pleasure? Yes.
Next, Spicer, call the question.
Call the question. Is there a second?
Second.
Myra Fasser has a second. This will end debate and end amendments. This will mean that what you're voting on is Article 5, as you have already amended it, to raise $44,513 for special appropriations. Is there any discussion about, oh no, you can't discuss moving the question, but we have to vote on whether to move the question or not, and it has to pass by 2/3. So I'm going to ask all those who are in favor of calling the question and ending debate to please indicate so by standing up. let's see if we can just do this visually. And please sit down. And all those against calling the question, please indicate so by standing up. The 2/3 of the people are in favor of calling the question, and the discussion ends. So we are now going to vote on Article 5 as we have amended. And I'm going to read it to you. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane combine Articles 5 through 33 in the amount of $44,513. If you are in favor of this amount, you will say aye, and if you're against it, you will say no. So all those in favor of Article 5, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no? The ayes have it. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. And Article 5, as we have amended it, has passed, and it means we can move on to Article 34. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize general fund expenditures for town and highway operating expenses of $1,605,485.80? Is there a motion? Myra Fassler, are you making a motion? You're moving Article 34. Is there a second? Margaret Wimbauer seconds it. So, this is what we're going to discuss. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize general fund expenditures for town and highway operating expenses of $1,605,485.80, of which $1,298,869.80 shall be raised by taxes, and $306,616 by non-tax revenues. I'd like to point your attention to our revenues are on pages 11 and 12, and expenditures are on pages 13 through 18. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Bruce Ross in Williamsville. We have the best damn town crew in the state. And we support them to the max.
Is there any other discussion? Yes? You're asking if there's any commentary for the select board? I think they'd like it to pass. You can join their commentary. You can hear their commentary at any select board, which you can attend in person or by Zoom. Any meeting. Yes. Susan.
Hi, Susan Mills. I've just been looking through the budget really quickly. One of the very few significant increases is for law enforcement. I'm just kind of curious what that's about.
Who wants to field that? Oh, so what Susan said, for those who didn't hear, is one of the increases in line was a line item for law enforcement, and she would like somebody to speak to that.
So we have noticed that there is an excess of speeding and reckless driving around our town. We're hoping that with an increased presence of law enforcement, we can maybe dissuade people from driving so recklessly through our villages and communities. We're kind of just putting the budget back to what it was. I forget how long ago, but right.
Years it was slashed by half.
Yeah, it was slashed 10 or 15 years ago, quite a bit. Also, with an increase in law enforcement on our roads, we do get revenue back from speeding and violations and fines. So hopefully the burden won't be quite as large on the taxpayers as the $12,000 increase or.
Our current budget affords us 3.5 hours a week of traffic control, which is not enough to affect any change. So we would like to slowly increase it over the coming years to get that to a more reasonable traffic management that is going to consistently keep speeds down in our town.
Dan.
Dan DeWalt, South Newfane. Do we have, the state police are seriously understaffed. The sheriff's department has been seriously undermined in general. Do we have any assurances that we'll actually, I'm in favor of this, of increasing the money for speed enforcement, but do we have actually any assurances that there is anyone that we can give that money to do the job?
Yes, we are funding the sheriff's office. We've discussed their staffing with them. They've gone through what their current staffing is. There are folks who are in training, some people they expect to be coming online. And yes, they do believe that they can meet this increase in service for us.
Sheriff Anderson recently told us that they are the only law enforcement group in the state that is fully staffed currently.
Does anyone else want to speak? Preferably someone who is opposed to this. Yes.
I just wanted to say.
Remind us of your name, please.
Gail Robertson, over in Newfane Center. I just wanted to say that there is a committee of townspeople who are also participating in this conversation, a planning committee. So there are more people who have eyes on this, both trying to serve South Newfane and the concerns in this area with the speeding through this part of town and through the main part of town. So just so you know, there are people who are working on how to spend this money and thinking about the best strategies for also making sure that the money is spent well enough and hopefully even bringing more money in.
Thank you. Yes, Mike.
Michael Granger. Jeff, you said something about revenues coming back to us.
Yes.
My understanding, and I'm probably wrong, is that all revenues from tickets all go to the state with nothing coming back. Is that right?
That's not correct.
Oh, good.
Yeah, we do get, it's a small percentage of that. Melissa tries to be better.
Normally we get like $4,000 approximately a year back in tickets and fines.
And is that based on a percentage? I'm sorry, Ms.
Yeah.
Moderator. Can I ask if that is a percentage or is that just a lump sum they give us?
No, every month they give me a little bit, so it's based on how much the tickets are, and I don't have their formula as to what they break down to give us as a town.
So keep speeding. I don't know. Just a minute. I'm sorry. What was your question?
It was just back in the day, so to speak. It was really expensive to have the speeders tracked.
Okay.
And we're not getting anything back. It's just expensive. It'd be nice to have the state change the plan.
So he's saying it would be nice to have the state change the formula. Right now, we're talking about a great idea.
I summarized what he said. He said it's nice that they have changed the formula.
They have changed the formula?
So that we now get some money back, while in the past he understands
Oh.
he's not.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear you, so nobody else heard you. So let's make sure everybody heard that the state has changed the formula and the town where the tickets are issued do get money back. But we don't know exactly what the formula is. There's someone here who might. If you would, if there's no objection, no, he doesn't have anything to say. So never mind.
I don't know the formula. Only the town, only the state knows the formula.
Oh. Okay.
Write the tickets.
Okay. Well, thank you. So yes, Myra.
Myra Bassler. I've just been told recently some are ignoring the fact that it's a one-lane bridge. It seems to me adding some kind of police or sheriff presence would be much to our advantage.
So if you didn't hear Myra, she is in favor of more law enforcement to stop speeding on the bridge and elsewhere. Yeah, okay. Sir?
Well, Howard's Newfane, I drive a school bus. I can tell you that we definitely need more law enforcement.
All right. Does this answer your question? Is there any more discussion about either speeding or anything about Article 34? Yes, Ken.
Under the road maintenance, I have a question as to, in budgeted, in emergency materials, we budgeted $1,000, but we spent $105,000. How did
I wish Jay were here. I saw him early this morning. He was headed home to bed feeling awful. So I don't know if there's anyone here who can answer that question. Oh, here we go, our road commissioner.
That is money that had to be, when we had the floods, we had to use it.
Thank you,
Some
Chris.
of that we will get back eventually.
We got, so according to our road commissioner, we'll get the money back, and according to our treasurer, we got all but $10,000 back already. Okay? Are there any other questions about Article 34? Hearing none, I think we're ready for the vote. So, an aye vote means you are in favor of spending, I'm going to just read it to you. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize general fund expenditures for town and highway operating expenses of $1,605,485.80, of which $1,298,869.80 shall be raised by taxes and $306,616 by non-tax revenues. So, if you are in favor of this, you'll say aye. If you are against it, you will say nay. All those in favor of Article 34 as just read, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. And the Article 34 passes. And I see that our representative to Montpelier is here. If there is no objection, I would like to invite Emily Long to give us her legislative report. Yeah. Here.
Wow, thanks. It's nice to be back here in Williamsville. I was just up at Townsend. Very packed meeting with awful lot going on up there. Amendments and amendments and amendments. So I'm here late. They actually vote, as you probably all know, they actually vote everything from the floor. So it takes a little time here. We do have Australian ballot here. So it's great to be back in person. I just wanted to quick say that. I'm also glad the legislature's back in person. We are much more efficient in the work that we do in person, and I am grateful for that. I'll just say, when I look here and I look up at the balcony, those of you who know me know I grew up on Baker Brook Road in Williamsville here, and we've always done the every other year, Newfane Village, Williamsville Village. And I used to always, my parents always said, if you're getting school off, you need to go to town meeting. And so I spent a lot of years up in that balcony, whispering with my friends, watching my dad up here on the stage, and it brings back some pretty good memories. So Montpelier, I will just say we are, like I said, back in person, but we're very accessible. We are still live streaming everything in committees and on the floor, which is the one distinct bonus of COVID. We also put up those live streams onto YouTube so you can see all of our archived work as well. So please join us whenever you can. If you're having a hard time sleeping, we'll put you to sleep. I've actually done that before when I've been reviewing other people's committee work. I actually don't sit on a policy committee this year. I am on both House Rules and our Joint Rules Committee. I am the House Majority Leader, so I never had time to get into my policy committee when I had an assignment anyway. So actually this, I miss policy committees, but I have a broad job and I need to stay on top of a whole lot of things up in Montpelier. And so I'm enjoying the work that I'm doing up there. I'll just quickly say we just passed our budget adjustment, just came out of conference and finalized that this past week. We sent it back over. It's ready for the governor to sign when he hopefully will sign it, since we pretty much implemented everything that he had asked for in there. We're working hard on our budget right now. Revenues in Vermont continue to remain up, but we're not hanging on that because we know that that's not going to continue. So we're trying to get as much done as we can with the revenues that we have currently in place. The three top issues that we hear from all of you on and that are actually interconnected. It's housing, workforce, and childcare. And they really are interconnected, and we are clearly very aware of that. We hear stories all the time about how a business is able to attract and hire someone and they don't take the job because they can't find housing. We are dealing with working families who are struggling all the time to try to find childcare, affordable childcare. Our goal, a big goal, is to try to make sure that no family has to pay more than 10% of their household income for childcare. That is a lofty goal, and we're going to continue to stay focused on it. I don't know how much we're going to be able to accomplish this year, but we're working very hard to make sure that we can help support not just working families with children, but also our childcare providers. And they're quite noticeably underpaid in many ways, and there are lots of changes that we need and can implement to help ease that burden. Climate change is also a very big topic for us all the time. We passed a Global Warming Solutions Act a few years ago, and that contains an awful lot of goals that we're trying to meet. We passed a clean heat standard last year that the governor vetoed it, and we failed to override the veto by one vote. So we are back at work on policy goals in a piece of legislation called the Affordable Heat Act. It's S5. It just passed out of the House, out of the Senate on Friday. I think Thursday or Friday was the vote, and that will head over to the House to see whether we need to make some changes, become very familiar with the work in it, but it also includes a clean heat standard. There is a lot of information out there about this bill. I know our senators would have loved to have been here today. I'm not saying anything that he hasn't announced already, but Nodder came down with COVID and unfortunately couldn't come, was planning to come to Newfane. And so the Senate has worked diligently on this piece of legislation. We are going to do the same, but there's a lot of misinformation out there as well about it. So we'll try to see what we can do to clarify that. In the House, we just need to get more familiar with the legislation first. So, all right, what else? I think that's pretty much the high level of what we're doing. I'm happy to take questions if if anybody wants to ask questions, happy to. Oh, sorry. Hi.
So, working on the select board, we're often trying to address different questions or issues here, and everyone says, oh, there's funding at the state. Go look for this, go look for that. I'm sick of it. I have gone through more applications, more grant requests, each one with different rules, different this, different that, different ways that they appropriate the money. Some you have to pay back, some you have to match. Enough already. We are a friggin' small state. It is too hard to get the money. Make it easier. You desperately want us to take it.
So,
make it easier.
I so agree with that challenge, but I also want to say that some of those, I can't, I mean, you talked about a whole bunch of different revenue sources. Many of those, and this is what we found most often, many of those forms and things that you have to fill out come from federal needs. Not all of them, but that is true. That is absolutely true. But, you know, one of the challenges around having additional revenue is that we have to figure out a way to disperse the revenue. And you need to come up with a path to be able to disperse the revenue. So, agreed, I hear you. I'm grateful that we have revenue that we're trying to disperse. It's a better problem to have than not having any money to help out. But grants, I often think about because you all know I'm still on the school board as well, and we talk about getting our families to sign up for free and reduced lunches and meals. And this is a bill actually that we're working on right now, Universal Meals program. We've been funding universal meals first through the federal government, and last year we funded it ourselves here in the state with revenues that we had. We have a bill right now. I celebrate the movement of the bill from the Education Committee to the Agricultural Committee, Ag Committee, because I really wanted to see us use local food as much as possible to feed our kids in our buildings, but it's expensive. And getting folks to fill out the form, for any of you who are educators, you know how challenging it can be. That's a federal form, and it is complicated, and we spend a lot of time trying to help parents fill out forms, or even getting parents to fill out forms. So I hear you. It's a challenge, and let me know if there's a problem specifically.
I heard there was a proposal for like a general application form. Anything that could be done to make it easier. The current system makes me want to just throw my hands up.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, thanks. I would support a general form if we can come up with one. Other questions? Go ahead.
I guess I was a little surprised that expanding internet access wasn't one of your time.
Yeah. Yeah, so there are a lot of things I didn't mention when I first started speaking here. Broadband expansion has been really important to us, and it continues to be. I know Newfane became part of the CUD that we formed here. It's Deerfield Valley, and the CUD I think covers, I can't remember how many towns. Jane, is Jane here? Jane Douglas here? Oh, there. So 24 towns? Got it. And we put $150 million into that the first year. We continue to put in funds to expand our access to broadband, and we are committed to doing that. The governor has been talking about cell service as well. And I'm going to just say we believe that we should have access to cell service as well, but broadband is critical for folks. Once you've got broadband, there is Wi-Fi accessibility to cell. So we're remain committed to putting as much dollars as we can squeeze out, especially while we still have revenues, into this to expand broadband. High priority. Thank you for bringing it up. Other questions or comments? Hey, Bob.
Bob Lyons, Newfane. Do you have an opinion on the no-cause eviction that's going around now in Brattleboro and Burlington?
I will let our communities who choose to put it on there. There's a lot of feelings both ways, and we'll see how it comes out. We supported in the legislature. We supported the movement, I think, of Burlington to try to do this in the past, but it has not. It has not passed. There's a lot of pros and cons for a lot of folks out there, but we really do need to make sure that we are focused on getting housing, rental housing for folks who they really need it. And so if there's a way to help improve the ability for folks to stay in apartments, we should be doing that as much as we can.
Which no cost doesn't help, it hurts tenants.
Right, right.
Housing's the issue.
Yep. Brenda, you're a voter here.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say, I can respond to that too, I guess. Just many people across the state, I've been working on this across the state, many people across the state have been evicted for no cause because landlords are increasing rents by extreme amounts. And that has left people with disabilities and others to be literally homeless. And our homelessness problem is increasing and costing us a ton of money. And in July, they're at risk. People are at risk of being on the street because of this. Like, we have to have some tenant protections. And in the just cause eviction, there are some protections for landlords. So as long as people are fair players, and like if landlords are doing renovations, if landlords are doing, have a family member that wants to move in, like a small landlord, or they're not going to use it as an apartment anymore, you can still use a no-cause eviction. But using no-cause eviction has caused people in poverty, specifically people with disabilities, people of color across the entire state, to actually be evicted and evicted to the street, which makes our communities less safe. So I'm in strong support of just cause eviction, and it's been researched and done in other states and works well and does not take housing off the market and increases accessibility to housing.
I think there's 3 towns that it's on the ballot right now: Brattleboro and Winooski. Yep. Yep. Thanks for your advocacy, Brenda. Other comments or questions?
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
If you have a question you want to ask Emily in private or by email, you can always get in touch with her. And and go see her at the More Free Library on the 3rd Saturday of every month. She's there. She likes company. Yeah. So, and thank you for taking your time today. I'd be remiss. We've got the PTO still selling. They still have things for sale, and they don't want to take it home. So,
Soup, too.
and including soup. Save some for me. All right. We are up to Article 36, moving right along. You'll find the information. 35. Again, my arithmetical challenges. 35. You'll find the information, the capital needs summaries on pages 21 to 23. And this particular item is on page 20. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize capital fund expenditures of $482,678.84, of which $481,678.84 shall be raised by taxes and $1,000 by non-tax revenue. Do I hear a motion? Will someone make a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. And will somebody second that? Second. Thank you. Did you get that, Carol? Okay, so I will read it again. We can discuss it. Article 35. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize capital fund expenditures of $482,678.84, of which $481,678.84 shall be raised by taxes, and $1,000 shall by non-tax revenue? So is there any discussion? Yes?
I'm a little bit confused where these numbers are coming from, because so the article is 482,000, but the numbers on page 20 are 658. I'm just trying to figure out what the difference is, so someone can explain that.
So I think we'll go to ask our treasurer.
Yep, so we have to pull out, we have to do the excavator lease as a separate article.
Can you take your mask off and use the mic?
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you.
All right, so we have to
You can
use.
you can just take the mic out and hold it.
Pull it
You
right
can
out
just
of the
pull it
stand.
out of the holder. Right, there you go.
All right. So the excavator lease has to be a separate article. So everything on page 20 is a combination of all the capital expenses. And then the articles are kind of broke up between the equipment lease, the equipment, or the bridge bond, equipment maintenance, and different things. So if you add these all together, you should come up with the same amount for all the articles, including the transfer of the surplus funds.
Katie, you want to say something? Add to this?
Where do we add the $1,000 that we just added to the appropriations? Does that go in the capital fund expenditures as well? No. Okay.
So that question was, where was the $1,000 we appropriated for more free library? It stays in the special appropriations line. It's not in this. But Emily, I'm waiting to hear if you're all set. Okay. Oh, great. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any other questions? Any further discussion of Article 35? It appears not. So we're ready for vote. Yes? Okay. Article 35, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane authorize capital fund expenditures of $482,678.84, of which $481,678.84 shall be raised by taxes and $1,000 by non-tax revenue. All those who are in favor will say aye, and all those who are against it will say no. So, all those in favor of Article 35, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and Article 35 passes. Article 36. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane raise by taxation the amount of $25,466.16 for the annual excavator lease payment for fiscal year 2024? Is there a motion? Sir, and you are? Thank you, Michael. And is there a second? And Christopher seconds it? So, shall the voter, Article 36, shall the voters, you'll find the information on page 23. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane raise by taxation the amount of $25,466.16 for the annual excavator lease payment for fiscal year 2024? Is there any discussion? Yes.
Kim Friedman, South Newfane. Not a discussion point. I just wanted to thank the Select Board for all of your work and service on behalf of the town. I know it's a lot of work, and thank you for everything that you do to keep things running. And Carol and Missy for your work as well.
there any discussion of Article 36? Hearing none, you ready for the vote? You know, yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
It's probably a very stupid question, but why is that so high? Would we be better off buying the excavator?
So Lynn Bedell asks, wouldn't we be better buying the excavator? Why is it so high? Is there anyone here who's willing to answer that or able to answer that? Yeah.
Are you talking about the payment for the 25,000? That's actually a yearly payment, and it's a lease to purchase for the excavator.
Oh, so we will eventually own it?
Yes.
So the answer is it's a lease to purchase, and we will eventually own it, and that seems to make Lynn feel better. If there's no further discussion, yes, go ahead.
I feel very bad. I did not recognize Winetta.
Are you ready to vote on Article 36? Okay. Article 36, shall the voters of the town of Newfane raise by taxation the amount of $25,466.16 for the annual excavator lease payment for fiscal year 2024? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the article passes. Moving right along. Article 37. You'll find the information for this on page 23. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane approve the transfer of surplus funds in the amount of $150,000 to the Capital Reserve Fund for fiscal year 2024? Is there a motion? Christopher Williams moves it, and is there a second? Tom Bedell seconds it. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. You ready for the vote? Oh, Gloria Costelli?
How much do we already have in the capital reserve fund?
I think you can find that on page 23.
Thank you.
Does somebody want to confirm? Missy, can you confirm that?
It is on page 23. But those numbers are changing drastically because we did just pay for the Arch Bridge, and we are paying for some of the other bridges right now. So that number has gone down significantly in the last few months.
Does that answer your question?
We don't know is the answer, is that correct? What's really there right now?
As of right this moment, I'd say more around 600,000 versus fiscal year 22 of 989,000.
So this is through June 30th of 2022. Gloria. That's when these numbers date to. Okay, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we're going to vote on Article 37. You know what to do. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane approve the transfer of surplus funds in the amount of $150,000 to the Capital Reserve Fund for fiscal year 2024? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the article passes. Article 38. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane establish a reserve fund to be called the Budget Stabilization to be used for covering unanticipated revenue shortfalls and to pay non-recurring and unanticipated general and highway fund expenses in accordance with 24 VSA 2804? Is there a motion? Yes, Myra Fassler moves it. Is there a second? Margaret Wimbauer seconds it. So I'm going to read it again, and then we're going to talk about it. Article 38. Shall the voters of the town of Newfane establish a reserve fund to be called the Budget Stabilization to be used for covering unanticipated revenue shortfalls and to pay non-recurring and unanticipated general and highway fund expenses in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. Is there any discussion? Yes. Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I was not clear. Dan.
I just have a question. Is there a dollar amount attached to this? And is there,
Yeah.
is there a dollar amount attached to this article? And do we currently have any, slush fund's not the right word, extra money taken out for unforeseen expenses, or is this a totally new thing? And do we have an idea of how much money is needed and where that would come?
Okay, so the questions are, is there any money attached to this? There can't be because we don't have established the fund yet. And if you see Article 39, you'll see where the money is. But does somebody in the select board want to talk about the VSA 24?
You're just required to do it in this manner, where first you ask if you want to establish it. If you say yes, then you say how much do you want to move into it, and that's what the next article details. Oh. It's like state grants. It's always too complex.
So, did everybody hear the answer? There's that first you establish the fund or not. If you establish the fund, then you can put money in it. If you don't establish the fund, you can't. And there's people who want to talk. Yeah.
Budget stabilization fund, which sounds sort of like a slush fund to me, versus what the capital reserve fund, which sounds a bit like a slush fund to me. I'm curious what the difference is and why we need two.
Melissa, can you explain that?
Yeah. So the capital reserve fund is all for the roads, the bridges, the buildings, and all the highway equipment. This budget stabilization fund would be used only for emergencies like FEMA. They'd have to set up a policy, the select board would, and state why this money is being used, and they can only use it on certain things. Like FEMA, grant money. Every time we get a grant, we have to pay in advance, so if the grant's like $100,000, we have to pay that up front before we get the grant money back. So it'd kind of be going in and out, and that's what it's used for. There was also unanticipated revenue shortfalls, like what happened this year with the taxes. So those are basically the three things that they could use it on and only on, if that's how they set it up, or you guys choose to set it up.
Pat.
Pat Haller in Newfane. Is this new? Have we had a similar structure in place before, or?
We've had a lot of unassigned funds, and we've kind of used it the same way, but this is more the proper channel to actually move it into something, a different fund, and label it like this.
Any other, Chris?
Do I need to go to the microphone?
Not if you speak that loud.
All right, because nobody else is. At the end of the dust-up over the tax shortfall this year, there was a talk of about an amount of money that was still there, a slush fund, if you will. Is that money still there, and how much is it?
That'd be a question for Missy.
So there was approximately, I think, $640,000, and $310,000 of it approximately went towards the tax shortfall. And then we just transferred $150,000 into the capital fund. And if you guys approve this here, then if you approve the transfer of another $150,000. So that'll leave only around $40,000 left in the slush fund or the unassigned money. 10,000 of it is in outstanding receivables. And before we put all these figures together, the other 21,000 was still outstanding in receivables, but that has come in since. So around 40,000 is what would be in the slush fund, basically, after all this.
We've got some select board.
Slush fund is a bad name for the capital surplus fund. This is money that we cannot use without your permission.
Correct.
Right.
And that needs to be very clear. It's not being used for anything. It's sitting there, and without your permission, we can't use it.
Thank you for that clarification. Any other comments? Tristram?
I promise this will be simple.
That's a first.
Whatever you want.
Sure. The question, a minute ago you mentioned that the policies have to be developed to define exactly where this money can be spent and how it can be spent. Does that mean the money will be locked up with inaccessible except for those uses? Thank you.
Yes, so for the budget stabilization fund, it can only be used for those special purposes. To get it to be used for anything else, the board would have to come to the town and get it approved.
Okay.
Yes, Emily.
Emily, well, is there I think it's a great idea to have money in savings if we have something come up. Is there, did you guys discuss kind of a goal, is this to be like 150,000 a year to kind of bulk up the fund so that we have a decent amount, like say a percentage of our overall budget that's sitting in the reserve fund in case we have an emergency? What's the goal for the future?
Someone from the select board going to answer that?
I think we've discussed
Or
the
Missy,
amount
sorry?
before.
Yeah, it's recommended to have at least 15% of the expenses of the overall budget, or the town operating budget, I should say.
And that would be our goal.
If we looked up Title 24, subsection 2804, would we be able to understand it? Would it explain it to us? And that's the Vermont law that you've quoted here. Is this? Here, in Article 38, it says, it's recommending this budget stabilization in accordance with Vermont statutes annotated, Title 24, Vermont statutes annotated, subsection 2804. So the question is,
Would that tell us more
would
about
that tell us more about it?
Presumably, yes.
Okay,
Yes, it will.
it will. Do we have it there?
At an annual or special meeting duly warned, a municipality may establish a reserve fund to be under the control and direction of the legislative branch of the municipality.
Okay, so it puts, did everybody hear that?
24 VSA 2804 states, at an annual or special meeting duly warned, a municipality may establish a reserve fund to be under the control and direction of the legislative branch of the municipality.
Does it say anything else? What is it used for? Here, So it says that, you are the legislators, so you get to decide.
So if our operating budget this year is about 1.6 million, so if we're putting in 150,000, with kind of the thought be that maybe like every year for the next 10 years, we put in like 150. I mean, if we put in, you said 15%, right? Is like the recommended. Okay, so 15% of our $1.6 million operating budget would be $240,000. So if we funded like 150 this year, and I mean, 100,000 next year, that would put us at 15% in case of emergencies. Is that kind of maybe the thought process?
Yes, it is.
So next year, if we put in, say, $100,000, at that point, we would just have that money setting aside in case of emergency. We wouldn't need to fully fund it, keep adding money to it after that. I will say, so I was a resident of Vernon prior to moving here, and I will just caution you, don't use that money just because you want to reduce your tax bill. So everyone knows that Vernon had, a surplus because of Vermont Yankee, and when Vermont Yankee shut down, and all of a sudden our residential tax bills went through the roof, it was very tempting to want to pull out of the reserve to just ease the burden on taxpayers. So I think this is a great idea, but I think I would just caution all of us to not want to dip into that when it gets tight and we want to reduce our tax bills. It's a great idea to have a savings account. Thank you.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Michael Newfane. So it says pay non-recurring and unanticipated general highway fund expenses. Is there a more specific policy for the use of that? Because 2804 is how it's established, not necessarily how it's used, right?
Yes.
Those are, I think, the things that, once this is approved, that is exactly what the select board will drill down and create those specific guidelines of how we would spend it. But we're thinking about things like, you know, when we had Irene and all the monies that had to be spent to dig out of that hole. And eventually we got most of it back from FEMA, but it took a while.
And all of the recent storms we've done.
11 years?
Right.
11 years?
11 years, is that it?
Yeah.
But even the July 29th storm that we just had a couple years ago,
2 years.
We had to spend a lot of money before FEMA came through.
The storm on December 23rd cost a lot of money.
Yeah, sure did.
You follow up and then Shelley, yeah.
I'm definitely on board. I would just like to have seen the policy prior to allocating funds for it. Yeah.
Come to the select board meeting when we discuss it.
Yeah. Did you hear that? That you've been personally invited to the select board meeting when they discuss it? All right, Shelley.
So the question is whether or not there's interest earning on this surplus money?
Yes, the answer is yes. There is interest on this surplus money.
I don't know what the bank rate is right now, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. It's gone up to like $1,200 a month, which was before, I think, maybe $100 a month, so.
So what are you doing with the interest, just throwing it in?
It gets allocated every month.
Into that fund?
Into all of them, because all the money is mostly together, so it gets allocated according to each fund.
Okay, gotcha.
So did everybody hear the money, the interest is substantial. It gets allocated across all the funds because it's all amalgamated. Any other discussion of this article? So you're being asked if you want to establish this budget stabilization method. Article 38. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane establish a reserve fund to be called the budget stabilization to be used for covering unanticipated revenue shortfalls and to pay non-recurring and unanticipated general and highway fund expenses in accordance with 24 VSA 2804. All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. I guess I hear none. And the ayes appear to have it, and the ayes have it. And we all know we are in Williamsville. Article 38 passes. Article 39. So we've established the fund. Now are we going to put money in it? 39. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane approve the transfer of $150,000 from the general surplus to fund the Budget Stabilization Reserve Fund for fiscal year 2024. Is there a motion? Yes, sir. Just remind me of your name. Michael McConnell. Okay, I remembered the last part. And a second. We've got Dan DeWalt seconding it. I'll read it again. Article 39, shall the voters of the Town of Newfane approve the transfer of $150,000 from the general surplus fund to the Budget Stabilization Reserve Fund for fiscal year 2024? Is there any discussion? There doesn't seem to be. So, you ready to vote? Yes. Okay. And you know that what each vote means. Article 39. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane approve the transfer of $150,000 from the general surplus fund to fund the Budget Stabilization Reserve Fund for fiscal year 2024? All those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it. And the article passes. Article 40. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane approve to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association located at 380 Dover Road, South Newfane, for a period not exceeding 5 years pursuant to 32 VSA 3840. This is formerly the South Newfane Baptist Church. Is there a motion? Yes, okay. And a second? Second. Okay. I read it again, because that's what Robert says I have to do. Okay. Article 40. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane approve to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association located at 380 Dover Road, South Newfane, for a period not exceeding 5 years pursuant to 32 VSA 3840. This is formerly the South Newfane Baptist Church. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Hi, Chris Trebert, South Newfane. I'd like to just give some backstory on this request about taxation. I'm part of the...
You can
you hear me?
Chris, I'll tell you what you can do is pick the microphone out, yep, and hold it closer to your mouth. There you go.
Okay.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to get trapped under there. So this, the article about the taxation question. So I am part of the South Newfane Community Association, and we are the organization that manages and maintains the schoolhouse in South Newfane Village. Last year, the South Newfane Baptist Church, which is across the street in the village, closed after 150 years because of dwindling membership. And the church board decided very generously to give the church building to the South Newfane Community Association, basically for two reasons. One would be that we would manage the sale of the building and then keep that money to help maintain the schoolhouse. And secondly, they hoped for us to find an appropriate buyer who would renovate it, keeping the historical integrity of the building. So that is happening. We have a buyer in hand, somebody who has it's a local Vermont company. They have a wonderful experience with historic buildings, and they want to renovate it and bring it back into use. So that's the good news. The bad news for the community association is that even though we are a tax-exempt organization, and the schoolhouse is, and the church, of course, never paid taxes in its 150 years of existence. Once the church property transferred to the community association, according to Vermont law, we found out that we owed taxes on that property. So we've done that. We've paid it it's through this fiscal year, I believe, that tax amount. So what we are asking of the town, if they would be willing to I don't know what the word is, restructure or change it back, redesignate the South Newfane, the former South Newfane church property, once again to be tax-free. There was never any tax collected on that building in the past, so it's not as if we're losing revenue. And hopefully, if this deal goes through and the building gets renovated and put to better use, it will probably be of more tax value and add to the grand list. So we were seeing it for us as a win-win in the community, and I hope if this actually happens, it will be a win-win-win, because it will increase the tax base for the town. But in the meantime, while the community association is actually in ownership of the church, we're asking if the town would let it go back to tax-free. We think this sale will probably happen within a year, but we are asking for 5 years just to be safe. So that's the background on this article.
Just for clarification, when a sale goes through, if this body grants the tax exemption, will that exemption end with the new buyer?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yes. The answer is yes. So, is there discussion? Go ahead.
I was just wondering what the buyer is and what the new use might be.
The buyer is it's a construction company that specializes in renovating historic buildings. And hopefully it would become a residence. But, you know, a residence, a gallery space, a studio space, I mean, they're open to what they might do with it, but the best part is they want to keep the historic integrity of it intact.
Did everybody hear that? That the buyer would change it into a residence, gallery, studio, but keep the historical integrity intact. Beckley.
I just want to make a comment wearing, switching hats now, and I'm wearing my lister's hat, and I'm a poor substitute for Doris. But if she were here, I think she would say that the South Newfane Community Association is not asking for special consideration here. This is standard practice that nonprofits need to come to the town that their property is located in and ask for an exemption for each parcel. So the schoolhouse has an exemption, and now they're here, standard practice, to ask for the town for exemption on the new purchase of the Baptist church.
Any other conversation? Yes.
How much are the taxes?
$6,600.
$6,600.
Yearly?
Yes.
Any other conversation? Yes, Pete.
I hate to complicate things, and I hope I don't. Pete Van on South Newfane. I tripped over this article when I first read it, because as I read it, or as I misread it, it seems that the 5 years would go on even if the property were sold in the meantime. I therefore would suggest an amendment where the article would read, shall the Town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 BSA 3840, vote to exempt from property taxation real estate located at 380 Dover Road, the former South Newfane Baptist Church, for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owns the property during the 5 fiscal years 2024 through 2028.
Can I?
But that amendment needs to be seconded?
Second.
And I need you to read that to me slower so I can write it down.
Get it written down, but it's pretty rough.
Well, just read it. I got as far as shall the Town of Newfane pursuant.
Want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
I'll try. Shall the Town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 BSA 3840, vote to exempt from property taxation real
Slow
estate.
down. After taxation, continue.
Real estate.
Real estate owned by
Baptist real estate located at 380 Dover Road, comma, the former South Newfane Baptist Church, comma,
I like the commas, yeah.
for such time as the South Newfane Community Association
Yeah.
owns said parcel during the 5
years.
fiscal years 2024 through 2028.
Thank you. So now, it's been moved and someone seconded it, yes? Did someone second it?
Gloria did.
Gloria seconded it? Okay, fine. So now I'll read it again. Shall the town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 VSA 3840, vote to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association located at 380 Dover Road, the former South Newfane Church, for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owns said parcel during the 5 fiscal years 2024 to 2028. Is that correct? So now let's have a discussion. Go ahead. I have to. Chris, I've got to. You have the right. You brought it up.
I think that's a great suggestion that Pete made. I think just for clarity's sake, it might not need 5 years. I think we could just end it, the wording with, until, as long as the South Newfane Community Association owns the parcel. Once we no longer own it, then that tax status changes. If you, I mean, it could be up to 5 years, but I think that way sounds like we're asking it for those 5 years, and hopefully we will not be the owners, you know, as soon as.
Okay, so just a minute. What you're offering is an amendment, but I think that it's taken for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owned such parcel during that time period. I think that covers. Once the South Newfane sells it, it doesn't own it, and the exemption ends. So I'm dissuading you from offering an amendment. So dissuaded. Okay. Lynn.
Well, I agree with Pete's amendment. I don't think we need it. Because once that property is sold, the tax status is gone. It doesn't follow the person.
So Lynn is saying we don't need the exemption because once the South Newfane, the amendment. So you're saying you are suggesting, I'm just trying to get this for everybody, so everybody hears it, because we're kind of muffled, okay? Lynn is suggesting we don't need the amendment. We could go to the amender and see if he wants to withdraw it, or he can say otherwise. Let's just one thing at a time. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, as I said originally, I tripped over this for exactly that reason. The way it was originally written, and so I thought that it would be useful to put in a phrase covering just the ownership by the community association.
So for those who might not have heard, Pete is saying he tripped over it when he read it. And for those who don't know, Pete's lived here a while. And he's been on most boards and probably still is on some. And he suggests that this amendment to limit the exemption to the ownership of the South Newfane Community Association. What was that? Is that correct?
Specificity.
It's specificity. All right. So go ahead, Tom.
Yeah. So I think it's already very specific. Let's read it. To exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association. Once they don't own it anymore, that's it. Right. So I think it's already there, isn't it?
No,
I'm not against the amendment, you know, but I.
Well, just a minute. We've got somebody else who wants to speak to it. Go ahead. Beckley, yeah, that's you.
So, from the lister's office, from the lister's point of view, even though the nonprofit is asking for an exemption for a specific property, the exemption travels with the current owner, with the South Newfane Community Association. So the amendment confirms what the law says, is that once the South Newfane Community Association sells a building, whoever is the new owner, if they choose to, will have to come come before all of you to ask for a new exemption. Just like the community association did not benefit from the church's exemption, you've had to come before this body to request an exemption. So the amendment doesn't change that, it's neutral, but we're already protections are already in place to ensure that once the community association sells that building, the tax exemption is gone from that specific property. Unless the new owner comes to all of you and asks for a new exemption.
So Beckley, could you, for people who are getting tired, could you tell us whether you think the amendment is necessary or not, from a legal point of view?
I don't think that it's necessary, but it's neutral. If people are more comfortable putting it in, then it doesn't negate or it doesn't tie the hands of the lister's office in applying the correct legal parameters around this decision. So it's neutral, but it's not necessary.
Thank you. Yes, John.
John Julian, Williamsville. I don't know if this is legal precedent, but there is precedent. The church next door, the second that changed hands after 140 years, you never saw Doris move so fast.
And just a minute, Shelley, and then Katie.
Yes, I think, the fact that it's now transferred into ownership to a nonprofit, it still is a piece of real estate, and I don't think having the taxes voided from their, from the responsibility of the nonprofit, they're going to make a windfall off of it.
I'm sorry, Shelley, we are talking only about the amendment at this point.
Oh, okay.
So save that. Come back to that. Did you want to say something about the amendment?
I'll wait until after.
Okay, we're only talking about the amendment, which reads, instead of what's written in your books, it reads, shall the Town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 VSA 3840, vote to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association located at 380 Dover Road, the former South Newfane Church, for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owns said parcel during the 5 fiscal years 2024-28. So that's what we're discussing, is this amendment. Do you want it to be more specific, or do you not? Yeah.
Hi, Michael Riley from Newfane. I propose an amendment to the amendment to read as the other amendments that say shall the voters of the town instead of shall the town.
I will call that a friendly amendment and insert it. Thank you. Unless there's an objection. Hearing none. So is there any further discussion about this amendment? Hearing none, we're going to vote on the amendment, okay? So the amendment, what you're voting on is whether you want the specificity that's been, or if you're okay, and that's actually all we're voting on. Do you want it to be this specific? Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 VSA 3840, vote to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association, located at 380 Dover Road, the former South Newfane Church, for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owns said parcel during the 5 fiscal years 2024 to 2028. So those in favor of this amendment to Article 40, please indicate so by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by saying no.
No.
Anyone from the Board of Civil Authorities still here? Okay. All those in favor, please indicate so by standing up. you won't see Oh, yeah, they changed all that. Okay, so thank you. You can sit down. And those who are opposed to this amendment, please indicate so by rising. So, there were 45 voters and needed 23 for this to pass, and there were 23 people who voted yes and 22 who voted no. So the amendment passes. And we have to vote now on the amended Article 40. Yes?
Just a point of clarity, I wanted to ask Melissa and Beckley if she's still here.
All right, she just left.
Bummer. Just for the general voters' understanding, let's see, how do I want to word this? As soon as, say, the fiscal year starts in July, the sale happens in October, how does that get prorated for the taxpayers, for the new owners?
It's not going to get prorated. It won't go back onto the tax bill until the following year.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a new amendment to discuss, rather a new article to discuss. It's Article 40 as amended. So now you just voted to amend this, Article 40. This is now Article 40. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 VSA 3840, vote to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association located at 380 Dover Road, the former South Newfane Church, for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owns said parcel during the 5 fiscal years 2024 to 2028. I don't know if I need a motion, but I'm going to ask for one anyway, just to be safe. Is there a motion? So moved. Are you going to second it for me? What was that? Yeah, okay.
You said it currently reads, shall the voters of the town of Newfane pursuant to local law vote?
Sure.
Is that what it says?
Grant, no. What does it say in the original? Approved. So, pursuant, no, I did say vote to exempt. I have it written, pardon?
I believe that's what you said.
Yeah, and are you?
I think that's a mischaracterization of what we're doing here.
Okay, and you want it to read how?
As it originally did.
Which is, says to approve. Approve, thank you. I'm going to take that as another friendly amendment. You're becoming my best friend, okay? As long as I hear no objection.
And may I?
Yes?
I'm sorry if I missed something, but 2024 is next fiscal year, correct? So
I think it's the fiscal year we're.
Starting with, according to this new amendment, we would be then still responsible for the tax up until 2024. If I'm understanding it right, and I'm sorry I didn't ask this question before.
This is a question for someone with fiscal knowledge.
So we're currently in what, fiscal year 2023. So I think our taxes are what, 2022 this year or 23? I'm trying to think of what it is.
23, we're voting on 24.
Yeah, we're voting on fiscal year 24, but the tax year will be 23, starting July 1st. Yep, so you guys are gonna be responsible for your taxes up till June 30th at this point.
Okay, so if the wording's staying as it is, once fiscal year, the new fiscal year that starts in July of '23, we would no longer be responsible for taxes starting then?
Right,
With
July
this
1st. Yep.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, thank you.
Do you want to amend it again?
You can't, you can't.
You can't.
I can't.
It's a state law about how it works.
Okay, the state law.
Okay.
All right, so now, this amended Article 40 has been moved and seconded again, and I've read it again, and then I could read it again right, but we've changed vote to approve. We all agree on that. Is there any discussion about this? I think, Shelley, you wanted to say something at this point? Is that?
Well, just that the fact that it's a real estate transaction that they're going to earn money off of, and I think taxpayers should be aware of that, and that it should be, taken in wise, decision as far as the length of time for exemption. I don't believe it should be an exemption, so that's about it.
So you just don't believe it should be an exemption?
No.
Fine. Anyone want to speak on the opposite side?
I would.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to explain, we had put the property up for sale and, the market was going like crazy and we thought we could get.
Do you want to explain that you're speaking now as a
I'm
South
speaking
Newfane?
on as a treasurer of the South Newfane Community Association, yes. And so we thought we could get an excellent price for it. We could not. There were very few people who were interested in the property. And those who did look at it saw that there were major infrastructural problems. It would cost a boatload of money to fix. And then they saw that it would also cost a lot of money to renovate it into a space other than being used once a week for church services 6 months out of the year. So, as all those dollar signs started kicking up, the amount that people were willing to pay for it went way down. I can't tell you what the current price that we're under contract for, but I can tell you it is less than what we feel we need to spend on the renovations of the schoolhouse. So the boatloads of money that, honest to God, we had hoped for did not materialize. And if we had gotten the boatloads of money, I do not believe we would have come forward asking for the tax exemption. But we did not get that vote. It did not stop at our point. So that's the situation that we are in now.
Any other comments? Brenda?
I just wanted to say that even if you do somehow get boatloads of money for it, Brenda Siegel, Newfane, the community association benefits all of us because there's free events and free activities, and so I support it being tax exempt because I think that there's a really positive benefit for our community that's really necessary in a small rural community. And so I really appreciate that, and I want to make it as accessible and as continued as possible.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to the amended Article 40? I think you're ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to read it correctly, and then we'll vote. Shall the voters of the Town of Newfane, pursuant to 32 VSA 3840, approve to exempt from property taxation real estate owned by the South Newfane Community Association located at 380 Dover Road, the former South Newfane Church, for such time as the South Newfane Community Association owns said parcel during the 5 fiscal years 2024 through 2028. All those in favor of this article, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed by saying no.
No.
The ayes appear to have it. The ayes have it, and the amended article passes. Article 41, to transact any other business that may legally come before the town. Yes, in back.
I would like to suggest that we request the select board to send a letter to the mover, summarizing kind of the discussion that happened here today, just pushing them along, saying we sent them your money this year, but we'd also like a little bit more information about what's going on the county.
Good idea.
The select board appreciates your suggestion. Yes.
Tell them to get moving.
Short letter. Short letter. Gloria Cristelli.
I have several different things I want to talk about. First is the West River Valley Mutual Aid Group. We are not a 503c. And as a consequence, we don't ask for money at this point, but we do a lot of things for the town of Newfane, and the West River Valley. So I just want to commend the work, especially the work that C.C. Julian has done, and several others of the steering committee for serving the Everyone Eats meals. We've probably done over 20,000 meals since we started. The Everyone Eats program ends at the end of this month, and we have sent out, most of our work there are deliveries, and we send out probably 75% of the meals that we get with deliveries. As a consequence, we have elderly people and people throughout the valley who definitely still need to get help. So we sent out a survey asking them to make sure we're in the process of trying to create a way of getting food to the elderly. Many of them can't, as Myra has been able to get the mover to come and do certain things. People need rides. We definitely need help. So please go on to our WRMUED website and find out opportunities to serve. I've had somebody recently request putting a ramp in because they need to be able to get in and out of their house, and that's here in Newfane. I also want to just make a statement that I think when I was town clerk, I made sure we had sandwich boards that revealed town meetings. If we can't, as the select board keep funding those, they get destroyed. I'd love to see some that we could put out flashing lights or something, because they need to be in South Newfane, Williamsville, and Newfane. I'm getting forgetful. I don't mind seeing a reminder. So I certainly appreciate that. And with Senior Solutions, I also was representing that. We have, and she's now left, but another person taking that over. But remember, Newfane, if we look around this room, we're continuing to become older and older. And we need all of the support that we can get. West River Valley Mutual Aid and Senior Solutions is all about volunteers, neighbors, helping neighbors. So please help. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
Jay Valley Gannon. My partner
Oh.
and I are South Newfane newbies, so thank you for the welcome, and we're excited to be here. I've noticed that there are a lot of conversations around our reports to social service organizations, and I appreciate the diversity of what they do. But in the interest of transparency, might I propose to the select board that there might be a top sheet that all of the social service organizations need to answer. One of the questions that came up repeatedly was how many folks locally have been served. If there was just, quick little stats in addition to their narratives, that might make it a lot easier for people to discern whether or not they want to support those different measures. Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to see you in person and not on
I'm
the,
also happy to help with that, not just assign it to you.
yeah. It's nice to see you off the little screen. Yeah, and anyone else? Brenda, did you have something?
Yeah, I've been working on emergency housing around the state, and I know that there's a group in Brattleboro. There's an incredible homelessness issue in Brattleboro, and there's a group in Brattleboro that wants to form to come up with ideas to create bridges to permanent housing, and to make sure people are safe and our communities are safer. And so if there's people who want, I'm not personally, except working in an advisory role, I'm not personally working with that group, but if people want to engage in that issue, you can talk to me if you want to engage on the state level, and you can also talk to me if you would love to engage on the local level on it, because these folks would like more people to be involved in it. So that's one. And just noting that it's hard, and Selectboard probably knows this, but it's very challenging to know how many people are served by many of these issues. So that's part of the reason I'm imagining that it's not there. I just wanted to note that, because those statistics are taken in a way that is very only used for funding purposes, because people's privacy is involved. And so, so I think that that might propose some challenge, but maybe there's some way to, because we do have this discussion every year, so maybe there are some challenges, some way to deal with that challenge. So on housing, you can reach me. The easiest way to reach me is probably at BrendaLynnSiegel@gmail, but that's a little if that's too complicated, Brenda at Brenda for Vermont, all spelled out, is still active. So just find a way to contact me, and I will get you connected to the right person to work on emergency housing. But like, it's a really, Brattleboro specifically, but across the state, huge problem, and it's looming to get a lot bigger, and we need people to be willing to be engaged in it.
Thank you. Is there any other, yeah, Lindsay?
I also wanted to take a second to, not only have soup and quiche and things, but also to speak on behalf of a program that is active at a lot of our local elementary schools called 4 Wins, that is looking for volunteers. If anybody is looking for a way to be involved in the community and with students, please see my dear friend Elizabeth Erickson. And it is a science, earth science curriculum that you get trained in. It only requires a small amount of your time, and it allows you to go inspire the next generation with really fun, interactive, hands-on earth science things. So if anybody is at all interested in that, please reach out. We are in big need of volunteers so that we can keep this program active in our schools.
Great, thank you. And thank you again for bringing us sustenance. Anything?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jeff.
So there's a couple projects that I've been working on that we're going to be looking for help, volunteers, and people to get involved with. One of them, there's a property on Dover Road, or I guess 2 properties, 2 parcels, that we're interested in converting to a community garden space. This is a space that we would really love to see utilized. We can't use it for really anything else. It was purchased after Hurricane Irene, or Tropical Storm Irene. The property needs to stay void of structures, houses, whatever, but we can use it as community garden space or location to gather picnic tables, maybe a little pavilion. But this is a project that I would really love to see the community come together and work on, rather than just be something we hire a municipal contractor to come in and build for us. I'd love to see the community come together and help build. I'm willing to donate time. I have a sawmill, I have a lot of lumber, I have a lot of things that I'd be willing to push towards this project. But I am looking for community members to get involved as well. So please reach out to me. You can find my contact info on the website. Yeah, and we will also put a little outline of these projects on our website. The second project is a series of 6 benches that we're looking to create. Benches, seating areas, gathering spaces. We're looking to have these constructed throughout the town. When the arch bridge was demolished, I had Jay take all the steel that came off the arch bridge. They're really, really cool, twisted, old, 1.5-inch rebar. And we saved all that steel. So I would love to try and get some artists to incorporate that steel. I would be willing to donate time on my sawmill and lumber for this project as well. But we're gonna shop this out to local community artisans and try to get people involved to collaborate and create these community spaces around our town. Currently, we're thinking one of these spaces would be right here at the Williamsville Hall out front. One of them would be in South Newfane, perhaps by the old schoolhouse. One up in Brookside. One out by the Newfane Town Office. And 1 or 2 on the town commons as well.
Good idea.
Yeah, great.
Very nice.
Thank you.
It's part of the beautification for the town, so it will also assist in helping to calm down the traffic, so maybe people will see and slow down. Maybe.
Drink.
But this project, we're gonna bring before the select board at our next select board meeting. Perhaps I'll be on the select board, perhaps I won't. But either way, I'll be involved in the project.
When is your next meeting?
The next meeting is, my calendar.
We just had a meeting last night.
Our next select board meeting is March 20th at 6 p.m. at the Newfane Town Hall. Our meetings are every first and third Monday unless there is a holiday, so we welcome everyone to come.
Yes, please.
And you can also attend by Zoom.
Yes.
So just a minute, are you finished?
I'm finished, yeah.
Okay.
I just want to thank Jeff and everybody involved for presenting something positive. It feels so good to hear something positive. Thank you.
All right. Does anybody want to say anything, Mike? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Speaking of the beautification of the town of Newfane, if there's anything that we can do to remove the debris that sits on the corner of Vermont Route 30 and Goosebrook Road. I spoke to the Environmental Protection Agency and they agreed to keep an eye on the debris that continues to float down Smith Brook when there's a heavy rain or snowfall. And they would abate that, but they were not responsible for the removal of the debris.
Is that the house that exploded?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
That is. It's a huge eyesore.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's also an EPA issue, yeah. So,
It's an environmental crisis at this point.
so I was trying to locate it. Please tell me again what you're suggesting or asking for.
If there's any monies available, I know that it's probably an issue for the estate.
Mhm.
Since no party in the estate has come forward, is there any funds available in the town of Newfane that can remove that debris from the corner?
Okay, there's a question for, what? Yeah, they've heard you. They'll look into it. Thank you for bringing it up. Any other? Anybody want to make a motion to adjourn? Myra, what's your motion?
I make a motion to adjourn.
It needs to be seconded. There's no debate. So all those in favor of adjournment, please indicate so by saying aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Thank you very much.